Okay, so for this small little series, I'm going to be talking about business analysis case studies. The intent or the goal here is really to help you think through what a business analyst does given different situations, different types of projects that they might come across. The goal here is not to actually point out every nitty gritty detail, but help you think about how to do your job as a business analyst. The intent here is really to help you get a feel for what a business analyst does and also potentially prepare you for business analysis interview questions. Another real life case study I was given was this person was put on a project and was told, we want you to help us automate this process. This organization had already documented the process, so they knew exactly the process they wanted to automate. They knew all the steps in the process and who was involved. You're not always going to be this lucky when you jump on a project, but in this case, this person was fortunate enough that this organization had already gotten to the point where they had documented their processes and they were there and they were good to go. And this person was brought on as business analyst, and they were essentially told, hey, I want you to automate our processes. In this scenario, one of the first things you need to understand is the context. Why are they trying to automate this process? Is there a particular tool or tool set they want to use to automate this process? Either way, whether they have one or not, it doesn't matter, but knowing the context of or the scope in which you're going to need to work might impact how you do the work. You're going to need to understand who all the stakeholders are involved. In this case, because that process document was already created, it gave like a good quick start of where this person was going to go to find those stakeholders, and it really put her in a really good place to hit the ground running. So the question is, how do you go about this project? Well, one, you're going to need to think about the business analysis core concept model, which is going to be true anytime you're doing any work as a business analyst on any project, which is who are the stakeholders, what is the context, what is the problem or need, what is the expected value at the end. Eventually, you're going to define a solution and what all things need to change. In this case, we know who the stakeholders are, or at least at a high level, the beginning, initiation of stakeholders. We know the context. They want an automated process, and the process has already been defined. The problem or need is that they want to automate the process, so we understand that as well. The value that you're bringing is that you're going to reduce the amount of manpower and turnaround time to kind of get through this process. And so you need to start defining a solution. And that solution is going to be defined based on the things that need to change in order to automate this process. If it was me and I was going through this, I would go through each step in that already documented process and determine what information is needed to accomplish that process, the input of that information. Where does that information come from? The source or supplier. And then what is happening in that step? Essentially, what is the process? What's the transformation? What data needs to come out at the end of that process? And then who does it need to go to? When you do that, you're essentially going to, for each of the steps that are already defined, you're essentially going to find, all the data sources that you're going to eventually need. Who are all the consumers of that data? What all decisions or rules need to be essentially coded for or automated in the process? And so you're really going to dig deep, and you're going to be finding those individual stakeholders to say, hey, you're the one who's in charge of this process. What specifically do you need to accomplish the process? Oh, you get data from that system. That's an integration that this automation process is going to need. Oh, these are the rules that you use to process that step. Okay, then that means we need to have the data available so that you can apply those rules to them. And then who needs this after you? Oh, it's you again. Maybe we can combine those steps or move it on to another system or another person, whatever the case may be. And in going through that exercise, you're essentially going to find all the data you need to process this automation, all the rules, all the decisions that go into making this process work. And eventually, you're going to be making decisions on how or where those steps or those rules are going to exist so this process could be automated. The depth in which you automate a process, again, it comes down to the context of a business, right? If you're trying to automate the whole thing, then the system needs to be robust enough to handle all parts of it. If there's only certain parts that a user does today, but really if the system just had all the right information, the system could just make the decision right away, then that's what you do. It just depends on what exactly the goal is, what value you're trying to bring, and where you're willing to allow the system to do it versus a person to make the decision on how the process continues or is processed. How would you document all that? Well, there's a lot of different ways you can go about documenting that. Obviously, the process flow already exists. You can create data flow diagrams. You could take each task and essentially create a SIPOC. So that's the source, input, incoming data, the process, the output data, and who gets it. Honestly, it's going to come down to you starting to collect that information, you starting to kind of create these documents, diagrams, and models. And then as you get more information, you'll kind of understand what's the best way to put that information together to make sure you have a clear, cohesive understanding of everything that's going on. And then, of course, it comes down to your stakeholders. What do they need to understand to be able to make decisions? So then again, you might be making documentation or deliverables based on what they need to create those decisions. So if you create that kind of table structure that I was talking about with the supplier input, process, output, and consumer or customer, then you could quickly see, all right, these are all the places that we get data from. You can kind of combine that into maybe fewer APIs or split them out into different APIs. You can see all the different consumers of data and say, okay, well, in different parts of the process, similar consumers are getting data, or the same consumers. Can we consolidate how that works? Can we put some of those things together? If business rules are applied multiple times throughout the process, can we kind of manipulate those process steps so they all happen at once, so that way you're not spreading it out and you're able to make essentially decisions quicker. So there's, depending on how you want to solve the problem, you're going to adjust your documentation to be able to help you get the information you need to make decisions, move forward, and help the team essentially develop the best possible solution. I hope that was helpful. I didn't have a script this time, so I might have rambled on a little bit. Sorry about that. If you have any additional questions about this particular scenario, or you have scenario case studies you would like to learn more about, or business analysis in general, let me know in the comments and I'll either answer you there or create a new video just like this one to answer you. So subscribe to see your questions get answered, and thanks for watching.